Hey everyone, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I am Piers Austin. I'm your host of Shooting the Shit Uncensored, and today I'm going to be joined by a very special guest. He's a former NWA World Champion. He is Tim Storm. Before we get started, I just want to make a special announcement. Guys, please make sure you support our Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and whatever else social media we got going out there, but we got it going. So, guys, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button somewhere. I think it's here or here. Sorry, guys, I'm not the most professional person when it comes to it, but that's why you love my show. But anyway, guys, look, just want to make a special announcement and thanks to Brothers of the Belt, Wrestling Review Society, Generational Wrestling Society. Love those wrestling belts, WCW Nation, Deathmatch Wrestling International, and also Michael Mados. So Michael Mados, he makes our amazing images for our shows, and those groups also allow us to stream in our group to make our audience that much bigger. Also, I just want to make a special shout out to our sponsors, Signal Studios, who is a recording studio in Sydney, Australia. They are a rehearsal space. They also make beats and music. So for musicians or anyone who really wants any sort of specific music made for them, these guys can do it, and they can send it out to you digitally. Also, Mayan Belts. If you want any championship belts made, you need to go to Mayan Belts. Eddie Williams is the man, and he's the best guy to speak to, and they make some amazing products and absolutely great. They have a payment plan, so if you can't afford to pay for a belt all up front, you can pay it off over a period of time. But, guys, now we got all that information out of the way, I would like to welcome my guest, Mr. Tim Storm. Tim, thank you so much for coming, buddy. I saw you laughing in the background, so I'm assuming that you approve of my intro. So
no, thank you for having me, Pierce. I appreciate it, man. I don't know. I just I was laughing at you. Said you're lacking professional. I thought you were doing a great job, right?
Oh, well, thank you very much.
I wanted to point and try to help you with where yeah.
Well, maybe you can help me with when we finish up. But look, we are going to have some fan or some viewer questions coming in. But look, I just want to say thank you so much, Tim, for giving up your time to be here for this. I first started hearing or heard about you with the 10 pounds of gold series that the NWA was putting on YouTube. And I saw you as the NWA World's Champion, and I was like, I wanted to learn more about this guy. And I started doing like a little bit of research and trying to find out what I can. And you're a school teacher as well, is that correct? I recently retired school teacher.
No, that's absolutely correct. And well, this is one of those, because I'm not a very serious person, but this is one of those when you said thank you for giving up my time. Unfortunately, for here and across the world, we seem to have plenty of time. Our schools are completely shut down right now for the next at least 2 weeks, maybe longer. So right now it's me, my wife, Netflix, and my grill in the back, and I got plenty of time, man. So I'm glad for the distraction. We've probably watched 8 or 9 movies in the last 3 days. So it's a good distraction to get to talk the thing I love, wrestling. I love talking wrestling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's crazy what's happening in the world. And I really hope that they can sort of get on top of it soon. And I've made comments before here in Australia. We've had people having fist fights in supermarkets over toilet paper. And that shit's crazy because they make it here in Australia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's I know that the world, I guess, in general, we've never seen anything like this, that we know of. And my message to everybody is, just be kind to people, right? I mean, like you're saying, there's fist fights over toilet paper, and we've made our store runs. I'm always, because of my passion, because of wrestling, what I do, diet is a big deal. So I'm always, my diet is basically chicken and beef, right? So we make our store runs, and it's overwhelming how many people are in the store and how inconsiderate the masses are, especially when such a high percentage of those people are the elderly, who probably, who are the most at risk, who are in there just trying to get basics, and you see people packing up, and hoarding everything they can. So, my word is just be kind to each other, and be considerate of because we're all dealing with something, right? And it's harder for some than others, but like you said, it's unbelievable. Like you're saying in the stores, it's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, and you know what? It's just crazy because a few months ago, you know, I'm not sure if you would have heard, but all the bushfires that were happening in Australia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like when that was happening, our country all came together, like
Right.
and like a nation joined. And now, like I see things on the news of people fist fighting over like a cucumber. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yep.
you know, I don't know. You know, like it's almost like a lynch mob. You know, so.
It is a weird time, and again, it's just something we're all having to deal with. It's in some more extreme than others, right? I mean, I'm at least here, I'm not worried about not having something to eat, for the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. May not be what I prefer, but it's and on a very limited basis, they may shut down the gyms, they may shut down everything. It may be, I may watch everything. I may have to subscribe to Disney. I don't know.
You might get through Netflix.
Yeah. Thank goodness for like shows like yours and YouTube where I can watch wrestling. So
yeah, well, that's the if they shut down gyms here, I'm going to be like finding a nice hard brick wall to headbutt because that's like I have to get my workouts in, man. I go nuts, like much like you, I assume. So, Kevin Rodriguez just throws up, Tim Storm, thank you so much for doing this show and being a part of his show, The War Room, which was a little while ago.
Yeah.
He said you're a class act and a living legend. I absolutely agree. So
I appreciate it. I try to approach things professionally and be good to people. I don't know about the living legend part. That's still a work in progress. We got we'll see how that comes out. We still got a ways to go.
You know what? I do see you as a living legend, and as I was mentioning before, first seeing you on the 10 pounds of gold series as the world champion, and being in Australia, I'm limited to what wrestling that we've always gotten here. But I've always been that wrestling nerd that's going out trying to find it whatever I can. Like I was buying tapes back in the 90s when I was a teenager by calling up the United States and my parents getting phone bills going, what the fuck?
Yeah. I've got a tub back here behind me, this door that's closed, that is full of VHS tapes. I mean, I'm just like you. I think everybody we were all fans. I'm still a fan of wrestling. I still love wrestling. I'm like you, always looking for something. Now you've got a whole world of YouTube, TV, internet the library of everything you could ever watch. I mean, it's there's plenty to do. Unfortunately, I'm going to maybe stuck at home, but there's going to be plenty to do while I'm here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, so what can you tell us, like, starting out, like, you debuted in 1995 in the professional wrestling business. Professional wrestling is something it's definitely not new to you. You've been doing it for many, many years, but you were also doing a school teacher as well. So what was it about school teaching that, and we will get to the wrestling before anyone starts blasting me in comments, but I just want to know. No, I just want to know more about you as the person. So my wife is a teacher as well. And what inspired you to get a degree in education and to get into that field?
Well, that's kind of the irony is, and you're not going to get the standard answer, by the way. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's, my degree, I have 2 degrees. I have a degree in communications and a degree in physical education. And my intent was I've done a lot of different things before I settled on teaching. This is my 11th year to teach. And prior to that, I ran 3 different businesses. I was part of a distribution thing for a newspaper. My first job out of college, I think it didn't last for 2 or 3 weeks because I disliked it so much, but I applied at a restaurant as an assistant manager. I mean, I was searching for what I was going to do. I settled on the teaching primarily because my wife and I would have the same time off. And I actually, when I took the job, I had substitute teach for a while just to see if I liked it. And she got moved into the administration side, and I walked into her classroom and got her job. So it's
oh wow,
yeah, I like teaching. Turned out I'm pretty decent at it. I'm a storyteller. That's kind of my gift because I'm not I'm not a history guy. I'm not even really a school guy. That's the funny thing. I wasn't a great student, but history, there's a lot of, I taught science for 5 years. This is my 6th year to teach history. There's a lot of good stories in history that you can teach, that you can tell. And that's kind of my gift in teaching, that and what I would call classroom management. I don't have a lot of problems with students. They're good, they're good kids. So, but yeah, I like teaching. And as far from my heart is in wrestling. It's always been in wrestling. And like you said, I couldn't have told you what year. I know that I'm like in my 25th year or so, relatively speaking. But the positive is, I'm done every day by 4 o'clock. I'm in the gym by 4:30. I've got every weekend off. I've got summer that I can travel and wrestle. I've got spring break. I've got Christmas. I got a lot of time to do what my passion is. And one of the things that I tell students when I'm teaching wrestling stuff is you've got to have a backup plan. Very few people are successful. Somebody told me the other day that it took me 25 years to become an overnight success, which is actually pretty accurate, right? I mean, it takes a long time to, like you said, for people to even recognize what you're at in the business. So, if all else fails, I can always continue to teach, especially when my body fails, which is going to happen at some point. That's part of being older.
And it's part of being in a business where physicality is a requirement.
Right.
That's why footballers don't play football into their 50s and 60s
Right.
and 70s. It's and that's the thing. It's a smart way of like letting the younger talent of today know that what is here in front of you right now might not be there tomorrow. Where yes, it's important to live in the present, but you also need to make sure that you're protected for the future, and especially in that sort of business. And and I think as well, you look at a lot of wrestlers from the past that obviously didn't have backup plans, weren't able to manage funds or family or lifestyle, life not being on the road. And you look at some of those tragic stories, and I think you see less of that now. Whereas I think the younger generation, professional wrestling, from a fan's perspective, you see the athletes becoming more athlete and professional in the professional wrestling field. And I don't know if that's, am I right in saying that?
Oh, no, absolutely. And I know, there for a while, it wasn't a requirement, but it was definitely a strong recommendation in a lot of organizations that before you even come in and try to start training, that you have a degree in something. It's absolutely right. And again, and I think I'll be this way until I'm done with wrestling, whenever that is my passion, my heart is in wrestling. It's in the ring. That's where I'm happiest. But you got to be smart. And at least for me, I was a fairly responsible adult, and not getting into wrestling until I was 30, 31. By that point, had been married for a while, had 2 kids, a house payment, 2 car payments. I was vice president of a company. It was not a deal where, and I'm not going to say I couldn't, but I was not willing to step away from all that responsibility and go, you know what, I'm going to go to WCW power plant, and I'm sure the bills will take care of themselves. I just couldn't do that.
Yeah. And I think as well, as you said, at that stage in your life, you had responsibilities, you had commitments and stuff that you need to take care of. But I think wrestling is obviously a love and a passion for you, and that's why you got into it. And if you'd never made a cent in the business, you'd probably still would have done exactly the same thing, because giving it a go and giving yourself an opportunity to do something that you love, that's the most important thing.
And there was a lot of years that I didn't make a cent in the business, right? I mean, and I got to be careful how I say these things, because I think that's the story that most wrestlers would probably share. Start breaking in. Took me a long time, but I told people for a long, long time that I had 3 things that I tried before anybody knew who I was. And even now, I don't want to lose money, right? I'm willing to invest in it. I've always been willing to invest in it. I don't want to lose money. I want to have fun. As long as I'm having fun. If I ever got to the point where I lost the fun of it, then I'm not sure I would have stayed. and I wanted to be able to stay healthy, and that's every wrestler's thing, right? I mean, it's just like you said, it's like being a footballer, right? You know, I played American football before I wrestled for a while in college, and I've picked two of the most brutal, to your body and on those terms that you can pick. And I think we all have our injuries and we all fight through it. And it just comes down to your passion, to try to get through those things. But we do, that's why we do it. You fight through them and you get through those injuries and our pain. It's not always injury. It's just sometimes just things hurt. But what you do, you keep going.
And that's the difference between, but you have to make your mind up if you're hurt or injured, and if you're doing something you love and you use the physicality, like I have done physical sports my whole life and combat sports and stuff like that, and there's no better feeling. Like I did boxing for a lot of years, and getting punched in the face, like people think, oh, that's not very nice. I'm like, no, that's when that's good. You know what I mean? Like, all right, you got me.
I loved your terminology. My college football coach, one of his ongoing words was he'd say, "There's a difference between pain and injury. You can move forward with pain. If you're truly injured," and then he'd say, "Now, you feel pain or are you injured? Can you keep going? Because that's what matters." We all feel pain, in any combat sports, in anything, any kind of competitive sport like that. And I mean, shoot, I think there's probably more knee injuries in soccer than there are in a lot of other sports because it's such it's a contact sport. And a lot of people look at it and don't see it that way, but it is, right? So, you see professional athletes all the time that you're always dealing with something. It's part of it.
And I think even
I'm like you take that punch in the face and go, no, that's good. Let's do that again.
Yeah. Like that I've always had that thing where it was like whenever I sparred, I'd get a hit to the face and I'd always smile and go, all right, man. And like the coach would be like, why are you smiling? I'm like, because man, it's a mind thing. Because once they punch you in the face and you smile at them.
And I'm kind of I won't say famous for it, but the people who know me well, if somebody lights me up pretty good, I'll go, let's go, do it again. Let's go. Because that just gets me going. That just gets my adrenaline flowing. So it's not like, what'd you do? It's like, come on, let's go. I like that. Let's go.
Yeah, I think you and I are a rare breed, Mr. Storm.
But it's an old school breed. It's an old school breed. I know that.
100%. So we're going to go to a couple of questions and then we'll get back into where we are. But Facebook user wants to know if you could pick one match in your career as your defining moment, which match would that be?
Okay, and that I'm going to say that's easy, especially where I'm at today, right? I've in 25 years, I've had a lot of matches, and again, that's kind of one of the running jokes in the business right now is a lot of people, you'll say, how long have you been in the business? And they'll say 6 years. But in today's wrestling, especially on the independent scene, that could be 100 matches, right? Where back in 90 or 80, whatever, those guys were on the road literally 350 days a year, having one or, they had, in their first year, they may have had 300 matches. So that's a relative thing. But, winning the NWA World Heavyweight title meant more than anybody could imagine. And, in this business, people win titles. And I have won a lot of titles. I have titles now in other organizations that I still work for. But when you grow up believing that the NWA was the best wrestling in the world, even in a different time period, right? I mean, obviously, I'm not wrestling Ric Flair and Harley Race and, Ricky Steamboat and those guys. But when you believe in your heart that that's the best wrestling in the world, I cut a promo at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, which showed up on some of those 10-pound. Matter of fact, it might have been the first or second 10 pounds of gold. And I held the title up and I spoke kind of from my heart, that's kind of what I do. And I said, this is my mountaintop. And a lot of people thought, okay, well, that's just a good line in wrestling. No, that's legitimate. In wrestling, that was the peak. That's the pinnacle for me. To me,
it's funny. Last week I was talking to Thunder Rosa, the NWA Women's Champion, and one of the questions or one of the things we were discussing was, yes, pro wrestling is predetermined, but when you hold a championship with lineage over 80 plus years, that means something. And what I mean, like the prestige and honor of holding that title means more than any. And Thunder Rosa said the exact agreed. She's like, yes, pro wrestling is predetermined, but this belt signifies I am the best. Right. And
Well, and I mean, I personally, I love her to death. You know, I live right outside of Dallas, Texas. She lives in Texas. I've known her, you know, not well, but I've been around her a lot. And just this year we've gotten where we're spending more time together, seeing each other more. But I knew that the night that I won that title, there was a lot of people back then who, I didn't know this at the time, by the way, I just hear things later. A lot of people thought that was kind of a pat on the back, kind of somebody actually termed it like the gold watch, right? You know, thank you for everything you've done. It probably won't last very long. But that night in the ring, one of my best friends was the referee, a guy named James Beard, who is legendary referee. And I mean, he's the only referee that I know, well, in history that's ever reffed in every major organization in Japan and in America. And then it was against a guy that I have a ton of respect for, a guy named Jack Stain. You know, who that's who I beat. So I was in there with two people that I loved and respected. And here's what I knew. I didn't know how long I was going to hold it, but I knew my name was on a list of some of the greatest wrestlers in the world that have lived. And I knew they couldn't take my name off that list.
And that's the thing. Like, you could have been like the champion for 5 minutes, but it doesn't matter. Your name goes down in history as, you know, a former NWA World Champion. And, you know, if your name's on that list, that means that you were the best of the best of the best for that time period. And, you know, I still think you've got plenty left in you, Tim, as well. So I'm definitely not saying that's the end of your...
I have days when I think that too. I have days when I'm not sure. Days when I think I got plenty left, but we'll see.
So another question from the audience is from Gene. Who are your favorite wrestlers from NWA? So I think he means from the history of NWA. So who are some of the guys, you know, we mentioned Harley Race, the Ric Flairs. Who are some of the guys that you really idolized from the NWA?
You know, Harley Race was a guy that I definitely idolized as far as his legitimacy. And I won't say that, you know, I've said this before, but I think Johnny Valentine gets credit for this. It pops up on social media every now and then where it's a meme of Johnny Valentine. And it says, you may not believe that wrestling is real, but you're going to know that I am. That's kind of the way I approach the business. I approach it from a very realistic standpoint. So Harley Race exemplified that. I think Ric Flair obviously was an incredible champion and one of the most entertaining in history. But the guy this kind of goes against both those. It's kind of, but the guy that I kind of looked at, watched, had everything he ever said memorized when I was 14 or 15 years old was Dusty Rhodes. And, you know, and here's the funny thing is, like, you go back now and you see pictures of Dusty, and obviously not a body guy, right? But the funny thing is, as I was watching that at the time, that never occurred to me. You know, how he looked, he was so good, so entertaining, so charismatic, having 60-minute matches. It never occurred to me that he wasn't, you know, didn't have the body that everybody wanted, right? It just never occurred to me.
He was the man's man, though. You know what I mean? He was your everyday man. Like I'm no, like, you know, 6'6" muscle bound. Right. I've got a little bit of a belly, and but guys like me and guys like that, or me back in the 80s and the 70s, could relate to that. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
And I think he was always that ultimate baby face.
Yeah.
You know, like even now, like you're a little bit older than I am, but I go back and I listen to different, and I rewatch a lot of NWA stuff. And to me, Dusty Rhodes, his stuff still holds up as some of the best stuff I've ever seen in wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's, you know, and I won't say that I've patterned my promos after him. Now I've intentionally borrowed some of his stuff as more of a tribute type. But man, you know, he had the ability to look into the camera and reach out to, literally sometimes reach out to the audience and appeal to their hearts and their minds. And what the business was and still is all about is making people want to come see it. And I don't think anybody did it better than Dusty Rhodes.
Well, you know, I'll even put it to you like this. Like I said, I watch a lot of wrestling and I try and find whatever I can. And I was watching some old school Dusty Rhodes stuff, and the Hard Times promo comes on. Now, I have a son who just turned 4 years old. My son was sitting there playing with his toys. Dusty came on the screen. He did the Hard Times promo. For that 5 minutes, my son was, locked on the screen. And that just goes to show how many different generations of people Dusty can really get to, man. Like 30 years after that, he's still getting to a little boy who's, a 3-year-old,
Well, and I borrowed, not only did I borrow, I imitated Dusty on a promo going into the Hard Times pay-per-view. And I put thought into my promos, but I don't practice them. And that's a Dusty thing. Dusty's thing was, if you practice your promos, you lose the true emotion of a promo. And I was a little concerned because I thought about it. And I don't do imitations, right? So when I thought, this is going into Hard Times, this deserves a Dusty moment. And I did the whole, my belly may be a little bit big, and my concern when I said it though was, and you never know a crowd reaction. You never know how media or people watching are going to react. My concern was, what if they don't get it? Just because it means that much to me, right? Just because the Hard Times promo to me is one of the best promos in the history of wrestling. Just because it means so much to me, what if when I say it, they go, what's he doing, right? Who's he? Why is he talking like that? But I did it, and the first time I hit it, and I said, my belly may be a little bit big, and the crowd kind of giggled. And I said, my honey may be a little bit big, and they just erupted. And my heart just exploded because I'm like, they get it. They're fans just like I was a fan.
But that's the thing. The NWA audience, the product that you guys put out, your audience, even though there might be like a few generations younger that may not have been even born when, the NWA was in its prominence, they still know this stuff. They still look it up. They still they appreciate that throwback promo that you did leading into Hard Times.
I just felt, I love the history of professional wrestling, and I got to be careful because I have had people challenge me to like, oh, your history of professional wrestling. Well, who was? It's not that, but I love the history of professional wrestling, and I think we have to recognize those people that came before us, right? That make what we do happen. That make it possible for us to follow that. And like you said, with NWA Power, it's not just a nod to old school. It's a mixture of everything, right? I mean, we've got every style of wrestling, but when I saw the production and I thought, and I was a part of it, I was like, and I didn't know it going into the episode 1 was my rematch against Nick Aldis. And I didn't know when it was gonna air that it had the background and the production values and all those kind of things. I had no idea. So the fact that fans react to an old school style of wrestling, because that's all I know, right? I mean, that's what I do. And I'm not doing it because that's NWA Power style. I'm doing it because that's who I am. So the fact that there's a place for that, that's fantastic for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Anyone who watches NWA sees that and that throwback style, that you guys do, and it's across all the categories of your wrestling, your tag, your women's, and even your main event. It's that real old school feel of old school professional wrestling, that hard hitting, fast action, and that's what I really love. But one thing, just going to a comment or question from Kevin Rodriguez, our good friend. He says, Tim, you've always been a man of your word. You recently lost the right to compete for the NWA Championship. Is the NWA Television Championship 7-match stipulation your way back at the 10 pounds of gold?
That's a great question. I have not analyzed that like that. It's a long road if that's the case. I had a shot, at Hard Times in the tournament and got beat by Ricky Starks, and super talented young athlete. I mean, and he beat me. He beat me. I was proud of the match. And I'm never completely happy, and I'm never completely happy if I don't win, right? But it's who knows? To answer your question, hadn't thought about that. I guess that's a possibility. I'm exactly like Kevin said, I'm a man of my word, and it is wrestling. I know that, like you said, there are storylines that we're following and all those kind of things, but I legitimately said, if I don't win, I don't get another shot at the title. And even the emotion of that was real to me. You know, if I go out on a limb and I say, okay, well, if this is my mountaintop, and it is, and I'm wrestling a match where I'm saying I can never reach that mountaintop again, that's a true emotion for me, right? I mean, I'm saying that's the high point of my wrestling. I want to get there again, and I'm telling you now, I would love to do that again. I'd love to hold that title again. But when I lose a match, saying I never get a shot at that again, that's real emotion. So, in going into that match and coming out of that match, my reality in my head is I won't get another shot at that time. Wrestling, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, as the proverbial saying is, never say never in wrestling. Right. But, you know, like, do you when they came to you, was that part of the storyline? Whose idea was it to bring that aspect of, you know, that stipulation to that match? Was that yours or?
Oh no, that wasn't mine. I would never. I'm not that creative for one thing. It was presented very carefully, and what I mean by that is, you know, there's a vision for me in the future. We're always talking about what that might be and what that might not be. And I think the exact way it was put was here's kind of where we'd like to go. And no, I'm not trying to retire you. You know, and that's kind of how it was put. Now, along the same lines, who knows if that match had not gone well, you know, and again, I'm just speculating because maybe the people, maybe maybe Billy and Dave knew and had a plan, but I don't think anybody thought that fans would care about me as much as they have. And I think that has, as much as anything, has extended whatever the game plan was. So the way it was brought up was, no, we're not trying to retire you. You know, this is the stipulation. But I took it seriously.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing. You have to take it seriously to make it, obviously, you have to buy into what you're doing. You have to make it believable for your audience, for us fans sitting at home watching it. You know, that's something that you have to be able to do. Larry Walker, he has a comment saying, I consider you in the same category as Dusty, Flair, and Race. I would say, you know what, I see a lot of similarities between Dusty with you, Tim. You know, that working man, you know, that honesty, that, you know, the similar sort of values. And
I honestly can't think of a higher compliment than that. And that's me being completely honest. From somebody who values those guys and who has watched thousands of hours of matches of those people and who grew up wanting to be like those guys, there's not a higher compliment. So thank you very much. I appreciate that, Larry. That's a huge compliment. I would never put myself in those guys' category personally, just because of what they mean to me, right? But if anybody thinks that, then that's a huge compliment.
I think there's many people that think that, and it just goes to show how humble you are, Tim. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, you know, I'm a big fan of Combat Zone Wrestling. You wrestled Nick Aldis on their Cage of Death event a few years ago in 2017, where you lost the title to Nick Aldis. How did you find going into an environment like Combat Zone Wrestling, which is known for more hardcore style of professional wrestling, very hard-nosed, hard-hitting, where you're more of a traditional and used to working in traditional type territories almost? How did you find that?
I'm just an honest person. It was about what I expected as far as the reception. They have some super talented wrestlers, and a lot of those guys have gone on, but even Tremont, who's the guy that I ended up kind of in a face-off with in the ring with, just super talented. And how in this business, you pick the area that you enjoy, that you like, and you can make money at, right? I mean, I learned for me personally that if I go out and try to be a great technical wrestler, I'm probably not going to be successful. If I go out and punch somebody in the mouth, I have more success, right? A lot of those guys have found this is what makes me successful. This is what fan base wants. So walking into that building, walking through the curtain with the 10 pounds of gold, wearing a suit and a tie, and I knew the reception was going to be a little rough. Now here's something that nobody's ever heard. I mean, I'll tell you the story. Okay.
Please.
Boy, this is one of those shoot interview things, and I'm not a heat seeker, so I'm not looking for heat here.
No. This is just
there was a misinformation that was given out to many of those wrestlers that were a part of CZW. Mm-hmm. Many of them were told, cut a promo, and we will pick somebody to have a shot at the NWA World Title. That was not what that was communicated to those guys by the NWA. That's what somebody at CZW chose to do to try to get better promos. So many of those guys, when we walked into that building and found out that was never going to be the case, there was some legitimate disgruntled of us being there. Then there was a segment that we did in the ring, and I've read comment. I've never said this. I've never commented on any of this when I see it. There were some comments that were made about how that we took way too long on the promo segment and had to cut the match short. And again, we had nothing to do with that. That we didn't. Our whole deal was you set it up, pick your guys to bring out there that you want to challenge. And some of those guys thought they were actually going to, at some point, maybe on the next show, get a shot at the title. I don't agree with that. I think you should be upfront with people and tell them, hey, you're cutting a promo, but here's what's going to happen, right? Obviously, I knew, I was wrestling Nick that night, so they didn't. So there was some legitimate, I won't say heat, because everybody was friendly and everybody was, was very professional. But there were some guys who were a little irritated on how that went down, and I will defend the NWA to say that from the very beginning, that's not what we told them. Whoever told them those other things, that was up to them, how they approach their promotion. But a lot of those guys, super talented, and I would have loved to have defended that title against any one of those guys at their building, knowing that I was going to get booed for coming out wearing a suit and being the straight-laced, babyface, white meat wrestler that I was. So,
yeah. And that's the thing. I think you can't really blame the NWA, and I think that the only thing they can, it's understandable they'd be disgruntled, but when you look at it, they can't take it out on yourself or Nick Aldis for being in that situation. That's the part of NWA's booking, not CZW's booking. But later on in that show, they had a rival promotion storm the ring and do a shoot invasion, where a former CZW champion was one of the people who did it, but was not aware of it. What was your understanding? Were you were you in the building when it happened? Were they trying to get you to go out there and help defend them? What was it like backstage when that happened for you guys?
Wow. Okay, because I'm Mr. Honesty. Okay, here's the way it goes. First off, I was probably at Shoney's by that time, or Denny's, or whatever, eating. And then my second response was, oh man, I don't know if I'm a good person or not. Was it a shoot invasion? I don't know. I know that was speculation, but if I'm in a cage in the middle of a match and somebody comes in that I don't know is coming in, especially somebody from a rival promotion comes into the ring, I'm not saying I'm winning every fight, but it's going to get ugly fast.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I have not heard that happened, and I didn't see that happened. I have no clue. I'm not part of their show. I'm not part of the booking. I'm not part of either promotion. So that's the question. Was it a shoot? I don't. I'm gonna put a big question mark on that. It doesn't
depend who you ask, really.
Yeah, it doesn't matter in the big picture of things, right? It drew attention. It drew fans, and in the business, that's what it's all about. So good for them. One way or the other, good for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, another question coming from Rick Lewis. He just wants to know, if AEW calls you, would you consider it, or would you even go to think WWE for that matter?
Again, I'll just be honest. I would. My heart is NWA. That's the truth. Yeah. If I would talk to anybody, because I love professional wrestling, I would have conversations with anybody. But here's the truth part. I'm 56 years old now. NWA has no interest in a 56-year-old wrestler, in another role. I have a ton of respect for both those promotions, obviously, and Had some really good conversations with some of those AEW guys prior to all of this. So, you know, NWA is where I'm at. It's where I want to be. I can't ever see me being anywhere else. And like I tell my students, if they ask about wrestling, I'm Mr. Scoggins. I'm a history teacher, right? So that's kind of the way it goes down. You know, I've had people say, "Oh, if so and so called, you'd be washing their windows for the right amount of money." You know, you never know. But
yeah, you know what? It comes down to, you know, are you happy? The environment you're going to be going into, and as you said, you seem very realistic in obviously where you're at in your career, and obviously the NWA is working well for you. I mean, every episode you look like $1,000,000 every time you walk out there. You're entertaining and captivating as a performer as well, and that's something that I think that a lot of fans like. You don't really see many negative things about Tim Storm out there on the internet or quote unquote dirt cheats.
well, it's there are not many 50, pick a number, 51 when I won it, 53, 54 when I lost it, 56 now. Put anybody in their 50s. There's not many professional wrestlers who are getting possibly the biggest push of their career at that age.
Yeah.
Billy Corgan, Dave Lagana, Nick Aldis, NWA, they're the ones that have made that happen. And that's family. And I don't mean just them. I mean, like you said, the studio audience there is kind of part of the show. It's their enthusiasm and their excitement. And then what we've seen is as we're sitting here right now, I'm talking to somebody halfway across the world, and we're sharing a love from the NWA, right? So when I go out, when I walk out and say hello, family, I mean that. It's the NWA has become a family, and I don't want to be anywhere else. I can't see me anywhere else. You know, I'm exactly where I want to be. It's where I'm staying. You know, but that's a fun question to talk about. The reality is, I'm NWA. That's my heart.
So fast forward a few more years, and I know you probably don't like to look too far down the line. When your in-ring career has finished, do you see yourself as a backstage role in the NWA or on-screen authority figure? Where do you see yourself in the grand scheme of things once in-ring is done?
All of those are a possibility. You know, when this is like I'm gonna use a name that a lot of people may or may not be familiar with. He should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way, but there was a manager wrestler named Skandar Akbar that really made Devastation Incorporated, and he really made his name at the Sportatorium in Dallas for world class. And I was very fortunate to have him as a travel partner for a while. Later in his years, and he used to say, and I won't do the imitation because that's every time I hear it, I hear his voice in my head. But he would always say, in this business, there's only two ways out. You either die or they stop booking you. It's like the mafia. You know, it's like you can't get out because it's your passion. It's almost like an addiction. So here's the answer to your question. In whatever role that is, and I'm moving into some of those. I'm helping, or they're doing, or trying to get me active in more roles anyway. As long as I'm a part of professional wrestling, you know, because it's my passion. Whether that's in a backstage role, an agent role, a production role, an authority role, whatever it is. In the best case scenario, I'll be able to continue to being able to be in front of fans because there's again, it's almost an addiction, and there's nothing better than to step out in front of those people. First off, there's nothing better than to be in the ring wrestling in front of those people. But at some point, that's not a possibility anymore, right? I mean, for anybody, all of those are a possibility. And I made this commitment to myself and the NWA 10 or 12 years ago. In whatever limited way possible, whatever the max of my ability, my goal was to do what I can to make the NWA, I don't want to say relevant again, but grow and become what it was when I was watching it. And at the time that I said that, I had no clue that I'd have any impact at all. It's worked out pretty good, right? I mean, turns out that transition guy that I was from the old to the new has worked out pretty good. But a lot of that is pure creativity on the part of, Billy and Dave and Nick, for that matter. So I hope I'm involved in some way for a long, long time, because that's where I want to be.
Yeah, no, and we hope to see you around for a long, long time before the in-ring finishes. But where do you, like, obviously now in the current storyline in the NWA, who are some of the guys that you really hope to be working with in the future? Who are some of the younger talent that you see coming through that you'd really like an opportunity to get in there and mix it up with, or mix it up again with?
We have such a talented roster, top to bottom. I think one of the things, and I've stated this, it's one of the things that really stands out to me is if you're watching, following social media, and you see people's comments, there are, if you have 50 people post who their favorite NWA wrestler is, it could be 25, 50 different people, right? Because there's something for everybody, and top to bottom. I'm not even the older guy, right? I mean, we've got the Rock and Roll Express. We've got, Ricky and Robert, who I've tagged with and done things with on Power, and then go all the way on the lower end as age wise. Ricky Starks is he'll hate me for saying this, is a Texas guy. He's not. He's a Louisiana guy. But I've known him for 6 or 7 years in Texas, and I always say, you're a Texas guy. What are you doing? He gets mad because I'm a Louisiana guy. Colby's an incredibly talented guy. But it's the whole roster, top to bottom, is full of talented men and women. And here's the thing that excited me the most. I thought that my passion for the NWA was kind of out there on its own, right? I mean, I thought, okay, well, I've got this passion. It sure is good to see these other people there. They have the same passion I do. The first day walking into those studios, seeing the setup, seeing the background, the podium setup, the ring, the apron, seeing that old school NWA logo on the apron, I was like, okay, this may be heaven, right? But to stand there and see people who have been in the business for 40 years have the same reaction. People who have been in the business for 2 years have the same reaction. It helps me. It motivates me to do whatever I can. So I won't single any one person out. If I can pass something on, whatever that is, and that's kind of, in a lot of ways, that's kind of become my job. I'm working with a lot of different people in the ring, and I'm not always successful. And part of that is, if they can get in there with a former NWA champion, have a good match or get a win, that's a good notch on their belt too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. Being able to work with an array of different talent is so important. And you mentioned first seeing the studio audience set up and seeing the banner and the old school. I can just imagine the Midnight Express walking through there and just going, holy shit. You know what I mean? Almost like having some sort of acid flashback.
Those guys are amazing. You'll get reviews on both sides of the board but to go out there and do what they do, and their enthusiasm, man, again, I don't want to get behind the curtain too much, but they are maybe one of the best. They're one of the best comedic teams, and I don't mean in wrestling. I mean as people that I've ever seen. They've been partners for so long that their timing, everything about them in the locker room is just amazing to be around. And I think one of them actually said that. They said, did I fall back in time 25 years ago? So it's cool to grow up watching people and then only get to work with them, but become good friends. The people that respect what you do and say good things to you and spend time with you. And I don't mean just wrestling. I just mean in general. That's a very cool thing.
And you know what? It's funny. And when I watched this and I rewatched it, when you guys won for Ricky Morton to get a shot at the 10 pounds of gold, I ain't going to lie. Like, I've been a professional wrestling fan. I'm 37 years of age. I've been a pro wrestling fan since I was about 2 or 3. And I understand what pro wrestling is. I was literally, when that happened, jumping up like a schoolgirl, excited. My wife and kids are like going, what the hell? And that's the thing, NWA, to have that feel-good moment for someone like Ricky Morton, to have that, to have that match, to be put in that opportunity. And, I think it is really good. And to give him that spotlight that he probably hadn't had previously, or not has had it to that extent.
Right.
But yeah, look, and that's the thing. When I first saw them coming to the NWA and being NWA champs, I was like, you know what I mean? Like, but then once I started watching more of it, I'm like, no, now I get it. It makes sense.
Well, and I think there's obviously there's a fine line in there for everybody, but I think that nod to the NWA history, I think that was their 9th title run. That's a nod to those previous 8 title runs, and some of those were for a long time. They were one of the top 1, 2, 3 tag teams in wrestling. Period. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you make a list of the greatest tag teams of all time, and I'm always careful to try not to make a list, but I'm making one in my head. They're going to be in the top 2 or 3, 4, in everybody's list that has any knowledge of history. They're and still going. I couldn't tell you how old they are, but to see guys they're doing things I never did. You're not. I know my limitations, and they apparently don't have any because they're still going just as hard as they ever went. So pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What have they been? And I mean this. Have they been? I think they've been relevant in wrestling in 4 decades. I'm not solid for 40 years, but I'm saying in 4 different decades they've been relevant in the world of professional wrestling. That's impressive.
And it speaks wonders for what they are, and like they've been able to evolve, but also keep that old school, like that rock and roll, attitude and whole dynamic is, of the Rock and Roll Express. They've been able to keep that by also evolving, promo wise and just everything that they do. And I'm a big fan of them, so.
Me too.
So Nick Aldis is someone that, obviously you've been very close with in the past years. Obviously, you've had several matches with Nick. How do you find your relationship with Nick now? Is it something that you're more of a mentor figure to him, or is it you guys are pretty much on equal footing where you consider him no longer the up and coming, he is the man?
Boy, it sucks being honest all the time. No, it's the way my brain works. I'm just going to be completely honest. I was never a mentor to Nick, and I think that the first time we stepped in the ring, I had my eyes opened to a whole different level of professional wrestling. Now you're talking about a guy who at 19 and 20 was literally in the ring with some of the top names in professional wrestling.
Yeah,
I know. After the first match, sitting down and going, kind of reviewing through, because I wasn't happy with a lot of things that I did in that match, and if there was any, boy, again, if there was any mentoring, Nick did more of it than I did as far as breaking down the match, and he actually made that statement. He goes, "Hey, listen, I was very fortunate that at a young age, I was getting to work and being helped by some of the top names in the business." And man, Nick is more talented than I think I have ever been in my life, all the way around. He is, and I hate to put him over because, chance I will punch him in the mouth and take that title. But he's surprisingly big every time I'm around him because I'm a big guy. He's 4', 250. He comes from the British background, so he's very technically sound. He's an amazingly intelligent person. And I think everybody's seen him drop that elbow off the top rope, which at 6'4", 250 is pretty impressive. In today's world, a lot of guys would say he's a body guy because he works so hard outside the ring. And then look at what he's done. Wow, I'm really putting him over. I love Nick to death, but he was loved for the first 10 or 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And came out after one show and couldn't even start the promo because he was being booed so much, which means he can work either side. He's shown it. He can work either side of the match. He can be loved. He can be hated. He's super talented, and he was definitely, the guy to move us forward. And as somebody who lost that championship, because no matter what we say about it being prearranged or whatever, there's some pain there's some pain that comes with not being the champion anymore, because that you fall in love with that belt, and you fall in love with what comes with it. You're looked at differently. You walk into a locker room and the respect level jumps up, regardless of who you are. Carrying that title brings respect with it. And bottom line, he was the right guy, and he's done a fantastic job. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to beat him and do it again, and take it again. I'm just saying, but he's done a fantastic job.
I don't think that there is anyone in the world that wouldn't want to see that match one more time, to be honest. I think you two in the ring, when you guys get in there, it's magic. And it really shines through how well you guys work together every time I see. I won't lie, I'll go back and I'll rewatch matches from time to time that I want to see. And you versus Aldis, both times that I've been able to see it in different things, in different promotions. I've really gone out of my way to really watch those and really get to see them again and again, because I've enjoyed it so much. We actually have a comment here, and I think this may be a challenge. It says Facebook user, but I know who this is. This is from Angel Medina, who is ECW original. He was leader of the Baldies in ECW. And he says Storm needs to take it to the extreme with the Kingpin. So I think that's a challenge from Angel, brother. So.
Well, I know exactly who the Kingpin is then. Man, I'm not sure this is a good analogy, because I'm not sure it makes it sound as good as it should be. I have a lot of students who will say, hey, let's wrestle. And I'm like, if the money's right. So that's my response, because that's a big man, right? My response would be, if the money's right, let's do it. I'm all for it. Let's go. I'll be in the ring.
Any promotions out there? Book it now. Tim Storm and the Angel, the Kingpin Angel. I'd love to see that. That'd be a cool one to see. Justin Hicks, one of our friends, he's put there, Tim Storm can defeat the coronavirus.
Somebody posted the other day that in worst case scenario, the coronavirus is going to turn into the zombie apocalypse, and the only man left standing is going to be Tim Storm. And I didn't know whether to take that as a compliment or an insult, but I don't know. Okay, let me go all public relations diplomatic on that answer. Together, we can all defeat the coronavirus. How's that? I don't. That's a tough one, man.
It is, man. I think that was more of a compliment that you're.
I take it that way. No, I take it that way. Thank you.
Also, Rick Lewis, Tim truly is the real life example. It's never too late to follow your dreams. Very inspiring class act. Newfound respect I've got for Tim tonight.
Thank you.
And also we'll just go back. Angel's got Tim Storm is an excellent wrestler. It would be an honor. So, I think as we start wrapping this up, Tim, I like to do this little game, so to speak, that I play with some of my guests. And I didn't tell you about this, so I apologize. Have you ever been to Australia, Tim?
I have not, but that's a place that I would love to go.
Well, you know what? We would love to have you here in Australia. And obviously, when you do come down, we're gonna set you up with this game, which is going to give you a better understanding of Aussie lingo, slang, and words. So when you come down, you'll be able to go, I know this. All right.
Okay. I'm gonna fail this. I'm gonna fail at this. I can tell. Okay. All right.
Mate, you've got Buckley chance of getting that. What does that mean?
No chance.
Little chance at winning. Okay.
No chance at all. Okay.
There you go. That's 1 point for Tim. All right. Mate, that bloke Tim is one hell of a larrikin.
Oh. How about this? A good guy.
Yeah, like someone who's always up for a laugh, always up for a cold beer.
Say the word again so I can use it. Larrikin?
Larrikin.
Larrikin. Got it. I'm using that tomorrow. Larrikin.
I've got to shoot through this afternoon.
Time's gonna fly. I'm gonna get through it.
I've got to leave early.
Okay. All right.
Mate, I tell you what, that place you wrestled last week, Tim, that was out whoop whoop, mate.
Not a good place. It was a dump.
No, it's more out of the middle of nowhere. Like you got to drive 3
okay.
hours. Yeah.
Okay.
I tell you what that bloke over there, mate, he's a few stubby short of a full six pack.
Okay, I got that one. That is not playing with a full deck.
That's correct. Yeah, a little bit slow.
You're good with that one.
All right. Bob wants $2,000 for that. Bob wants $2,000 for that belt. Tell him he's dreaming.
Ain't no way I'm paying $2,000 for that belt.
Yeah, so like it's not a fair deal. All right, so we'll go another one. Oh, mate, you got to get your laughing gear around this.
I have no clue. This scares me. I don't know.
Yeah, I was meant like to be handing you food like through the camera, like eat.
Okay.
Yeah, wrap your laughing gear around. This is like, man, this is really good. You need to eat this and try this.
And I would have gone the other way. I would have thought I can't wrap my head around that. Okay, I got
yeah.
it.
All right, before we go, let's have one for the road.
One more drink before we go. One more handshake. One more celebration before we go.
Yep, exactly it. All right, here's another one. Billy's going to spit the dummy that I told too much on Pierce's podcast today. What's he going to do? He's
going to be shocked.
Spit the dummy, more upset, angry, but you know.
Oh, okay.
I think Billy would be quite happy with it. But I just used Billy as a name. Just realized I said it. Yeah. So sorry, Billy. No, but we'll go one more. I'm just going to go up to the servo, and then I'll swing past the bottle O on the way home for the Barbie. What is a servo? What is a bottle O?
Grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to swing by a bar. You're going to swing by the bar on the grocery store so that you can grill.
I got to swing past the servo real quick. Then I got to go to the bottle O. Then come back and get the Barbie started.
I'm going to say gas station, grocery store, and grill.
All right. So a servo is a gas station.
Okay.
A bottle O is like a liquor store. And a barbecue, well, that's just what we do. So,
gotcha.
But look, that's all we've got time for, Tim. Before we go, I will get you to hang back just a minute after we go live, but I just wanted to make a special announcement. And firstly, Tim, thank you so much for allowing and coming on our show and giving us an hour of your time to talk about your career, have a little bit of fun, and literally shoot the shit with me today. Tim, your social media is down below on Instagram and Twitter. Is there anywhere else where people can find you at all?
That's the best ones right there. I mean, I'm on Facebook and all that, but to be honest, that one's so packed up with people that I probably can't. You know, I've maxed out on that. Instagram, Twitter are the best ways to reach me.
Fantastic. Also, just wanted to do a special thanks to the groups that allow us to stream in their groups every single week. Brothers of the Belt, Wrestling Review Society, Generational Wrestling Society, Love Those Wrestling Belts, WCW Nation, Defend Deathmatch Wrestling International, and I'd also like to say a special thank you to my friend Michael Mados for making all the incredible images he does for the page. Also, guys, make sure to subscribe to our page, become a member of our page on Facebook. When we get to 500 members, we will be giving away a handmade NWA Television Championship by Joseph Armstrong. Joseph Armstrong's a friend of mine. He makes homemade belts, and they look incredible. Tim, you would actually think this is the real deal. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting subscribe somewhere up here. Show us some support and love. Also, just a special thanks to our sponsors, to Signal Studios and to Mayan Belts. Guys, that's all the time we have. Tim, thank you so much again for coming on. I've had a great time. I hope you enjoyed it too, brother.
I had a blast, Piers. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. I'll catch you on Saturday for my next show, which I'll make an announcement about that later, guys. All the best.